So after praying outside at my parents' property near the fence line in front of this tree, I left it in God's hands. I started applying the application process. And you know, God, when He has a plan and He has a will for you, He works out the details. It just so happened that at the church in Tyler, where we attended, one of the daughters of a member there was she worked in the academic office at the campus college, or at the college campus of Southwestern Adventist University. And she had come home to visit around the same time. And I tell you, God works in mysterious ways. And she just so happened to have an application with her to the school, which I filled out. I sent the application back with proof of my GED. And I didn't know what to expect. My grades, again, were not exemplary. They weren't A's and B's, let me say that. So I didn't know what to expect. But when God has a plan, He will move mountains and He will part the sea for you. He'd already gotten me this far, and I mean, look at how many things have happened that led up to this. I could do nothing but trust Him at this point, knowing that He's got a plan. So I got the application and I began to fill it out and everything, and sure enough, they accepted my application. Now remember the young lady that I was dating who finally decided to court me at the end of the summer that year of 2001. Again, I had begun to start thinking to myself that I may have jumped the gun and that I may have bitten off a little more than I could chew, because although I liked her, she was moving far away. And we were both transitioning in our lives. We were going off to school, et cetera, et cetera. And she ended up at Oakwood College, the college that I had prayed and asked God for direction about, and He basically told me no. She ended up over there. And which was, Huntsville, Alabama is about a 12-hour drive from Southwestern Adventist University. So where Oakwood College or university is about a 12 hours distance in terms of a drive to Southwestern Adventist University. So I knew that wasn't going to work. You know, I'm young. I know I'm going to find some young, fine thing on campus, and this young lady that I was dealing with would become an afterthought, but I would end up hurting her if I didn't break it off like a respectable young man. And I ain't always been respectable with the ladies. Now, let me just make that clear. But at this point in time, I was still very much a good boy when it came to my dealings with women. And so I broke it off with her. I remember I was on the phone with her and I broke it off, and she cried. She didn't understand why we couldn't make it work. She didn't understand why, because she had been making all these plans. I mean, she had given me full details of how she wanted me to touch her, where she wanted me to touch her, and what she wanted me to do while I was going to be in certain places. I'm just going to keep it like that and keep it PG-13. And she had started getting really connected to me. And I liked it. I wanted her to be. But again, I knew this ain't going to work. So I had to break it off. And so on the phone that day, again, she cried and she's just like, I don't want you to leave me. But I told her, look, this is the best thing for us both. You're going to go off to school. I'm going off to school. We're going to find somebody that's going to help us forget that we even knew each other. And sure enough, she got married, has a family. I got married and had a family. And so remember now the dream. The dream only confirmed. And if you don't remember the dream, again, you need to go back 2 episodes to listen to that particular You Don't Know Wednesday episode to find out the dream, okay? In fact, it is entitled You Don't Know Wednesday, The Dream, so that you can find it. And anyway, I already knew from a child when kids were saying, I want to be a firefighter, I want to be a police officer, I want to be a lawyer or a doctor. I was 9, 10, 11 years old telling folk, I'm going to be a preacher. I knew that. And that was the only thing I ever knew I would do or be or become. I knew that that was my calling. And so when I had the dream at the age of 18, that summer of 2001 that I discussed before, it was only confirmation. And you got to go back and listen to that episode if you hadn't, because right now, I sound like I'm speaking Greek because you don't know what the dream has to do with or what it entails. Go back and listen. And so the dream created within me this confirmation that God was surely wanting to use me as a preacher. In fact, I remember, and I may have said this in another episode long ago, about different times when I would be dreaming about preaching and my dad would wake me up and say, boy, what's wrong with you? I'm like, nothing. He's like, you rolling around in here screaming out to the top of your lungs, I want to be a preacher, I want to be a preacher. I don't remember it. I wasn't conscious of it, but that's what he told me. And that kind of blew my mind when I think about it, because it's like, man, I guess I really am supposed to be a preacher, huh? Because, I'm talking about it in my sleep. I'm sleepwalking preaching. I want to be a minister. I want to be a... Yeah, it was that serious. So with the dream, of course, when I'm headed now off to college, Southwestern Adventist University, the plan is to study theology. And that would put me in line to get a degree, a bachelor's, so that I can become a preacher in the Seventh-day Adventist Conference. Now, I'm going to be very careful how I say this. There are man-made systems, if you will, that require you to go through those systems and to pass certain criterias in order to be what God has called and ordained you to be. For example, and I say this lightly, you may have the gift of teaching, but unless you get your bachelor's degree, ain't no school gonna hire you to teach their students. And unfortunately, in the church even, at least the church that I'm affiliated with, you may be called, anointed with the word of God, with love, with kindness, and everything that you need to be a successful minister. But if you don't got that piece of paper behind your name, you might as well forget it. Now, I'm not to say that there are not certain exceptions made, depending upon who you know and whose back you're willing to scratch. But for a brother like me, I don't have any connections. I'm not the smartest apple in the barrel. And I'm very blunt. And my style of preaching is convicting. So I don't fathom that anybody that would listen to me that's connected would say, oh, we got to get this brother behind the pulpit. No, I don't think that's how that's going to go down. Now, God is able, but unfortunately, there are some things that red tape that you have to cross, have to cut, whatever, in man-made systems. But even Jesus himself was not supported by the powers that be during his time. He was not on the payroll, if you will. He did the work of his Father because he was convicted and he knew this is what I was made for. This is what I was born into this world for. And I don't need a degree to do that. And so this is my ministry now. You see where I'm preaching and sharing all the time on YouTube without the permission of men, without a degree, without a coattail, because no one can stop what God has ordained. But I felt and knew at that time, at least, that I've got to go to school to get this piece of paper so that I can be hired on and get a paycheck for what I want to do, and that is preach. And so I went to Southwestern Adventist University, and God had a plan even in all of that. And I remember after I had gotten the letter in the mail that they had approved my application, I got in touch with the basketball coach there, and I got him to agree to give me a trial. basically to see what little skills I had. I say little because although I loved basketball, sports was never that important to me to where I had to be the next Michael Jordan, Barry Sanders, Jerry Rice, LeBron James, or Dwayne Wade. I didn't have to be that. I just enjoyed playing it. I didn't have nothing to prove through bouncing a basketball and dunking over somebody and hitting three-pointers over them. I had nothing to prove. I was just a young man at the age of 18 that wanted to have fun. I wasn't trying to make a career out of it. And so, although I was 6'4", big, and was expected to have skills because of my size, my homie didn't have no skills. And so when I went to the campus that evening, my mother and I left home, Tyler, Texas, with a pair of And1 shorts. They were gray with black trim. The number 11 retro Jordans with the black flow shine and the blue suede bottoms. A white t-shirt, and that's it. I had not $1 to my name. We drove the 200 miles or so from Tyler, Texas to Keene, Texas, where Southwestern Adventist University is located. And I went there to try out. And sure enough, the coach was like, I'll call you, don't call me. Basically, that's how that relationship went down, or that interview. But as I walked around campus after we practiced with the coach, I began to feel a spirit of acceptance for some reason on this campus, and I felt like I was where I was supposed to be. Now, this was again after I had prayed, asking for guidance and direction. Everything had went the way I had asked God for it to go if it was His will. The doors were being opened, and so I ended up that very day. I had no change of clothes. I had no change of shoes, no change of underwear, nothing. School would not start. The fall semester of 2001 would not start for another week. But I begged my mother to let me stay. And I went into the financial office and I said, look, I want to be a student here. Dean Knight was the student body president at the time, which is funny enough, he also served years later at Oakwood College, where I ended up not going, but where I end up living near to here in Huntsville, Alabama, where Oakwood College is located. But anyway, I walked into his office and I told him I want to stay here. Me and my mom came to try for the team. And of course, man, these guys are salesmen. They could sell you your own underwear. And he was like, well, bro, man, this is what you do. Go over here to this office and talk to them and give them my endorsement and this, that, and the third. And I stayed. For more on my story, tune in next week and you be blessed.